Hi there, it's time for this week's art tour. I would call it a sketchbook tour, but mostly I've been tearing out pages of my sketchbook and using pieces of watercolor paper to make art out on the trails here in Southeast Alaska. And so I wanted to share with you what I've been working on. I've been doing a little bit at home, I've been doing some on the trails, some of the paintings I start on the trails and then I finish at home. Also, I made myself a new carrier for my wet paints. I'll show you that. And I have some new paints, some new acrylic gouache paints, so I'll give you my thoughts on those, what I think about them, and how I've been learning to work with them. If you're new here, my name's Danelle. I've been an artist for about 40 years. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in painting. And lately I've been trying a lot of new things, just getting re-inspired about the art process and creativity. I have some new books. I've been trying new approaches, some with more success than others, but I feel like I'm making progress and I definitely feel inspired. I've been trying a lot of new things that I haven't done before. I'm mostly just focused on oil painting and was kind of stuck in one sort of style, so I've been trying a more impressionist, loose, painterly style, so that's been really fun. So let's get started. If you would like to see some of my art that I have made in the past, you can check out my website at danellekelly.art. And if you want to see me out painting on the trails, check out this playlist. I've been doing weekly vlogs of going out on our trails and out in the wilderness to do some art, so that's been really fun. Let's get started with this week's tour. This week I've been focused on my water-based paints. These are my acrylic gouache paints, and I did a vlog of painting this at Ward Lake, a local lake that's close by. And you can check out the card up above to see that. And I didn't have a really small brush with me, so I put a little fisherman in there, which I've never attempted to put a little figure in there before. And he's a little bigger than he should be, so I plan to take a smaller brush and cut him down to size. But I'm pretty happy overall with how this turned out. The acrylic gouache paints I find do dry quite a bit lighter than when they first go on. So I've had to adapt some of the ways that I approach painting with those, but I think I'm getting a little bit better with them. Here's a watercolor painting I did at the same location, Ward Lake, but it was raining a lot this week, so I did go to Ward Lake more than I normally would because there are little shelters there. So I sat under this little shelter and there's an old fire ring there. There were 2 red-throated loons there that day, which was really awesome. And I like to do my watercolors starting with this black waterproof pen. I feel like it gives it a little more definition because I'm still learning about watercolors too. I haven't done too much watercolor painting over the years, so I'm actually having a lot of fun with the watercolors and the pen. I've been really enjoying those. Here's a painting that I did with pen and watercolor again, and this was in a muskeg, and this was actually a pretty nice day. Our muskegs are what we call a bog around here. There's this little pond in there. They're sort of meadowy. We don't have very much open space here, so these are about the only places where you're going to find something that's kind of open, and on a nice day it'll look a little bit sunny. Have some distant mountains. I was trying to get the impression of this mist over here. I still haven't completely conquered that, but I was fairly happy with this one. One thing I've been taping the edges of these when I paint. It gives kind of a nice little framed effect when you're done, and it helps to just hold the paper flatter while I'm painting, but I was having problems with the tape adhering a little too hard. It tore my paper a little bit. This is different watercolor paper than I use normally. This is a Strathmore. It came in a pack of like greeting cards that you could paint yourself. I just cut off the half of the greeting card and used it as though it were normal paper. It's not quite as white as the normal paper, the Arches paper that I use, but it worked pretty well. I'll talk more about tape later. I have some new tape I bought that I thought would be better, but it really isn't. Here's another one I painted also at Ward Lake. I went there a lot this last week. And this one I didn't really like the way it turned out. I kind of like the way the trees look. I did accomplish some of this misty look on the mountains. It looks a little more brilliant in the camera here. But this is a gravelly beach that I didn't quite nail the color on. I tried lifting the color a little bit and fixing it, but I didn't really accomplish that. This is a little more acidic green than I was aiming for, but it was good practice like all of them. And here is another acrylic gouache painting. This one I did have to work on after I got home. It was a little bit of a misty rain while I was there. So, and also I found with the acrylic gouache, it's difficult to get the highlights in when it's still wet, and when you're out painting in misty rain, it takes a while to dry. So it's just this creek that comes down here, goes under the trail, in a big culvert. So when I was out there, it just looked pretty dull. It was hard to even tell that this was a creek. So after I got home, I added the highlights in these plants. These are some Devil's Club plants. And over here is just a big mess of salmonberry bushes, and we don't have very many deciduous trees here, but there are a few of these red alders over here that have a lot of leaves. This is just a chaos of green, small green leaves and shrubs, and it was pretty much the same way over here except for these Devil's Club leaves. But after I got home, I put on the highlights. When I first did it out in the field, I thought this was going to be completely unsavable, but once I got the highlights in there and it gave it more definition, I am pretty happy with the way this one turned out. And this is one that I did yesterday morning, again at Ward Lake, because it was raining again, and we sat in the same shelter that I sat in for this one, but I decided to do a horizontal image this time and left out the fire ring. And I was pretty happy with this one. Again, this is watercolor with the pen. I think I did have more color in this shrub here, but then I blotted it out because it just looked a little too dark. And there were some kind of reddish grasses over here, which I think that really helped to get a little bit. Everything is so green here. You can end up with just a big mass of green in your painting. So I think these little bit of these very short reddish grasses kind of helped to give some more interest to the painting. Pretty happy with this one. I think I finally accomplished getting some of this mist in here. Probably could have gotten a little more definition of the mountain, but that's a pretty big mountain back there, so it pretty much goes straight up. But I'm always aiming to get the mist in there. We often have mist hanging in our hills and mountains here, so it's something that's kind of important to conquer if you're going to be painting in plein air in Southeast Alaska. And here is another acrylic gouache painting. This is a plant called bog laurel that I took a picture of last month when they were blooming. They have these very intense pink blooms, which I almost gave up on this painting because normally I like to paint with a pretty limited palette. I like to create and mix my own colors, and I could not get that pink with just using the red or the violet mixed with white. They were just way too dull, and I just felt so frustrated I almost gave up. But I just bought a really large set of Holbein acrylic gouache, so I went up and rummaged around and I found a color called magenta. That's this one. And I used that, and it completely saved this painting. The color of pink finally came out. I've hardly ever painted flowers, so they're a little bit rough here and there, and I was getting pretty frustrated by the time I tried to paint those blossoms, and it wasn't working. So the next time I paint those, hopefully it'll be a little more crisp, and I won't have already struggled for a long time. I tried to get these little tiny water droplets on here. Not too bad, but you can see maybe in the water droplets that I also started this painting with my waterproof ink pens, which I really like sketching with. Here's a sketch that I did yesterday from a photo that a friend of mine took. And she gave me permission to make a piece of art with it. I sketched this in waterproof pen as well, and then used watercolor to color it in. And I really love the way this turned out, except my drawing, this wing turned out shorter than the other wing. So typical with drawing, you really should be like a carpenter, measure twice, draw once. So I wouldn't mind trying to re-render this one, just do it all over again, because I really like it. I like the image, I like the idea, and I like the way it turned out, except for that wing being a little shorter bothers me, but otherwise I really like the way that turned out. Here's the acrylic gouache painting that I did this morning. Down on a beach, there is this really big, interesting rock. I've done a few different paintings down on this beach. I've done some sketches down on this beach. It's a gorgeous area. I did a vlog of doing an oil painting on this beach. I'll put a card up above for that vlog. But today I decided I'd done the whole beach vista so many times that I would focus just on this interesting rock. And I am trying a lot of new approaches that I've learned on YouTube. I also have the Alla Prima book by Richard Schmid that I showed in my last art tour. Put a card up above for that one. And I think it's really helped me with this. When I first started it, I just put in the basic, the shapes, the values, the darks, the lights, and at first it looked quite chaotic because of that. I had put in the darks back here, some of these darks here, and then I came forward with the background beach, and it looked pretty chaotic, but I held on to the hope that my new training and my new ideas and my new learning was going to carry me through, and it did. I really like the way this one turned out. It had some little tiny trees growing on top of it. There's a big bank of trees back there, and then a few, there's kind of a little inlet and some layers of beach, and then all of this lighter colored rocks here. So I'm pretty happy with this one. And so that was the last one that I've done this week. So I'll show you some of the tools that I've been using this week. I'm pretty happy with some of the ways that I have kind of dialed in my plein air system for both watercolor and the acrylic gouache. I showed this little kit that I made in another video, but I'll show it again in case you haven't seen that one. I got this little bead storage box from Walmart for just a few dollars. And I put my gouache paints in here, and these seem to keep them out from drying out. I haven't had them dry out at all yet. I'll mist them with a little water, then I seal them up. They just have these little snap lids, and just put my favorite colors in there. Sometimes I'll bring an extra tube of white since that goes a little bit faster, but these can hold quite a bit of paint, more than I would really need in one session. I have a very short amount of time to even do these paintings in the morning because I'm taking a walk before work, and I have the 3 border collies, sometimes the Chihuahua. Only have so much time, so I don't need a huge amount of paint. And these are very small paintings, as you can see. So I put those in there. I have my little paper towel that I put in there too. And I can also fit my tubes of this Holbein acrylic gouache in here, so I can put in an extra tube of white in here, which is what I'm going to do tomorrow. I have shown this before. This is just a Van Gogh brand watercolor kit that's really nice for outside. I have one from Walmart too that has little slide out, several layers of slide out trays with watercolor, but I think these watercolors are a little bit better quality. I took the little watercolor brush, the has a little water storage brush from the other kit, and put it in this kit. It's got quite a few colors. It's very, very portable. It's easy to just slip in my kit. This is my go-to. It's just like a little school pencil box left over from when my kids were in elementary school. And it can hold my small brush. This is not the brush I usually bring, but it had my other brush that I like, a little bit bigger than this, same brand, Rosemary and Company. I love these brushes. And I have another one just a little bit bigger than this, and it fits in here just perfectly. It's great. And that is what I use for my acrylic gouache paints. I don't use the water barrel brush for those. So in here, I've shown this before too. I have this old metal pencil box, and it not only holds my pens and pencils, extra paper towels, but I don't think I've ever used the eraser. Mostly I keep it in there just to keep them from rattling around so bad. But this all fits in my backpack really easily. And then this pencil box, I wish it was maybe slightly bigger, but this makes a really good base for holding my paintings on. I just set them on top of there, and with the tape, now that I've been taping the edges, the tape kind of helps hold them on there, and this actually works really well. It's a pretty good system. I've been happy with it. I bought 3 of these. They came in a set of 3, so I bring my water in these. I actually cut those clips off. I don't have anything to clip those to. I have the one for my oil painting kit where I just took a cutter and just sliced that off of there because it's just in the way if you're not using it. So I use this for water. When I bring out my oil painting kit, I put my odorless spirits in there. I do put it in a Ziploc bag as well, though. This does have a nice gasket, but the thinner, the spirit seems to be able to kind of slightly leak out of there, even with a good gasket. This is the best thing that I made. I do have a wet panel carrier for my oil paintings, which I really like. But when I'm doing just these little acrylic gouache paintings on paper, this seems a little bit overkill. It just has these straps, and just put it's for 8 by 10 paintings. The disadvantage is you can't really change the size of paintings you're doing when you use it, but they just fit right in there like that. And then you just put these straps on, and it carries really nicely. So I thought of just using this for my acrylic gouache and even my watercolors. The acrylic gouache just doesn't dry enough, and so I can't just stuff it in here like I used to do with my watercolors. And I found that even my watercolors, sometimes the color would just be damp enough that the color would kind of rub off when I'm hiking back to the car. So I didn't want to use the oil painting carrier, so I made myself a really lightweight carrier out of this box. I showed this in my last vlog. I'll put a card up above for that vlog. And it's fairly sturdy. A computer keyboard came in this, so it's pretty rigid. I wanted something that wouldn't collapse if pressed upon, because I have other things in my backpack. I have a ball thrower for my dogs and my tea and my little folding stool. So I didn't want a cardboard that was so weak that it could get compressed. And so I will just tape the edges and stick them inside of here, and then it just folds up. And then I put rubber bands around it to just keep it together, and it's been holding up really well. I've only been using it for this week, but it doesn't seem to be damaged at all. So, and I can easily just make another one if this one starts to fall apart, which I'm sure it eventually will. Being really damp here, cardboard isn't going to hold up forever, but this is the best solution I found for now that's light, cheap, and effective. So, and that brings me to tape. Since I started taping my watercolors and my acrylic gouache paintings down, I wanted to find a solution that wouldn't tear my paper, and also that wouldn't be a really distracting color. The typical painter's tape comes in that extremely brilliant blue, and I feel like that color is just kind of distracting when you're trying to plan your colors in your painting. So I wanted something that was more neutral. Regular masking tape is wonderfully neutral, but sticks pretty hard, so you have to be super careful when you take it off. So I thought I found a great solution. I got this tape. I ordered it online, and it was advertised as being for delicate surfaces. So I thought it would be perfect for the paper that it would be better than regular masking tape for taping my pieces down. It's difficult to deal with, it's very sticky, and it's very, very thin. The only advantage to it being thin, which I found is kind of nice, is when you're putting it on your paper, you can see the paper under it, so you can make sure it's even. Because if it's going to have white edges, you kind of want them to be even. So that's really the only advantage I've found. This tape I've only had this week, and twice already it has torn my paper. So this has not been effective for the delicate surface of my paper. So I might just go back to regular old boring masking tape. So that's my, it says right on it, delicate surface. But it sticks really hard. It's hard to deal with too because it's so sticky and so thin, it folds back on itself, and it can be kind of frustrating to work with. I went on eBay because my original acrylic gouache set, which is here, I got this gouache, acrylic gouache Liquitex set off of eBay. They said it was barely used, just one of the colors. Well, all of the white and the 3 primary colors were almost gone. This only lasted me like 4 small paintings. So I was pretty sad about that. The other colors are still there, I just don't use those colors as much. I wish they wouldn't put black in these sets. I don't use black, and I use a lot of white. So I wish they would put 2 whites in, no black. They probably won't listen to me. So I went back to eBay, and maybe I should have just ordered single colors of the ones I know I use the most, but being that acrylic gouache is still new to me, I want a bunch of colors so I can experiment. And I'm kind of glad I did that, because when I did this flower painting, the mixing red and white did not work at all. So I needed to have this goofy magenta color to get those flowers to look right. So I'm kind of glad I have these big sets. I got 1 set of 18 and 2 sets of 12. And I'm sure there'll be colors in here that I will hardly use at all. The burnt sienna is kind of a strange color. It doesn't, see, it's very pale. The burnt sienna to me should be quite dark. And I usually mix it with blue to make a black. But it's kind of a strange, it almost looks to me like what I would call Venetian red in oil paints. I don't know if you can see that very well. But that seems too pale to be called burnt sienna. It looks maybe more like a raw sienna. Anyway, so I have these big sets, and acrylic gouache has been a little bit frustrating, but I'm kind of obsessed with it. Yeah, I feel like I'm getting a little better at it, and so I keep wanting to paint with it and paint with it. It's one reason why I don't have an oil painting to show you this week. I hope you enjoyed this tour. If you have some feedback, if you have ideas on carrying your tools out in plein air, that would maybe work better than this. If you have a lightweight, tough carrier for the small paintings that are on paper, let me know. And I'd love to hear your feedback. I love to have you here in this community. If you would like to join this community, please subscribe. I would love it if you hit the like button. Mostly I'd love it if you comment, because my whole purpose here is to build community and conversation and learn from each other and just have fun. I've been really more inspired to paint just because I have you to show my paintings to. So I hope you are having fun with your art, or with studying art, or whatever art that you are doing. Stay creative and have fun.